So welcome everyone. Today we have the pleasure to have a great speaker, best wholesaler in Illinois, Dan Carlton. So thank you, Dan, for joining today. He's going to be talking about the newest techniques in building your six-figure wholesaling business. Um, so Dan, the floor is yours. We appreciate you joining us today on a Sunday.
No problem. Thanks, Hugo. Welcome, everybody. First of all, I would like to congratulate everybody that's on this call for making the decision to be on this call today. Let's face it, it's a beautiful weekend in August. It's about 80 degrees out. I was out for a bike ride with my wife this morning. It was gorgeous. And let's face it, there's a lot of things that we could be doing on a day like today. But the fact that you're here on a Sunday, no less, to further your education and your progress as it relates to real estate, that's impressive, and I'm glad you're here. In order to make this time most valuable for the people that are on this call, I'd like to ask a couple questions, because that way I'll try to focus our time on the things that will benefit the people here the most. So if you have not yet done your first deal, put a little chat in the chat box. If you've done a deal or you have not done a deal, it's yes or no. Well, let's see where we need to start with everybody. Because if we're going to build a six-figure wholesaling business, we're a long way away if we haven't done a deal yet. Right? Okay, no, not yet. No. No deal. Okay. I like when people say not yet, because that means I'm just on my way. Only one, but it was a while ago. Okay. So I'm getting a hunch that we have a lot of new wholesalers, new investors. And so in order to make this time most valuable, is it okay with everybody if we do a little blocking and tackling and kind of keep it simple? And rather than focus on a six-figure wholesaling business, is it okay if we focus on how do we get our first deal done and how do we get it done in the near future? Is that something we'd rather talk about? Yes, Andrea? Okay. I mean, we're going to sprinkle in some other things, but it's important to get that first check. And I will tell you, not real, well, I'm not, I guess I am proud of it. It probably took me the better part of a year to get my first deal. And I guess the reason why you might be asking, well, why would you be proud about that? That doesn't seem very impressive. The truth is, it's not impressive. But why I'm proud of it is because along that pathway in a year, I learned a lot, I grew a lot, and frankly, there's a lot of people that would have quit, they would have given up, they would have said, this is too hard, they would have said, this isn't for me, and they would have moved on. So the fact that I persevered, I had the tenacity to get to the finish line, is one of the reasons that I'm here with you today. This whole wholesaling thing, if you're on a bunch of webinars and YouTube videos and all these kind of things, it seems like everybody's ringing the bell and everybody's showing big checks. And, the truth of the matter is it isn't all that easy. And, but we're going to break it down today, and we're going to try to simplify it, and let's work to get deal one. So how are we going to do that? The first thing we have to do is we have to find some motivated sellers. And we hear that term, motivated seller, but what does that really mean? Because there's a lot of people that want to sell a house. You can go on the MLS or Zillow and you can see all the people that would like to sell a house. The difference in our world is we're not necessarily looking for people that want to sell a house. We're looking for people that have a situation where they need to sell the house. And not only do they need to sell the house, a lot of times there's a time frame that's rather urgent in getting this accomplished. This is what creates the opportunity. Does that make sense? So how do we determine what these situations are and how do we find these people. Well, for one, if you're part of Chicago Deal Vault, and if you're on this call, I sure hope you are, and if you're not, I would expect you should be, is because this is a software that's available exclusively to this market of Chicago. There's a lot of national platforms, I'm sure some of you know about them, and they have a whole bunch of information that may or may not be useful. But Chicago Deal Vault is local, and real estate is a local game. So one of the nice things about Deal Vault is it does all the area analysis, so you can understand which areas are best for flipping, which are best for buy and hold, what the population trends are, what the income trends are, what the demographics are in those areas. And those are all good things to know. There's also a tab where you can find pre-foreclosures and probate and vacant houses. And these are, pre-foreclosure. And these are all the types of things that cause people to have a situation. There we go, pre-foreclosure. Let's look at some vacant properties. Here you go. So now that we're in vacant properties, we can look by zip code. You can look by town. So if you give me, I don't know, Bellwood. What do you got for Bellwood? I bring up Bellwood because we had a wholesale deal that we put out to our buyers on Wednesday or Thursday, and we had a chance for buyers to come see the property yesterday morning, and there's probably 25, 30 people that showed up, and we had 4 offers. 2 were full price offers, and we took the offer that was cash. So no hard money, no private money, pure cash. So that's the buyer we took, and that was a nice deal. So if you like to do deals like that in Bellwood, well, here are 2 pages of absentee owners. So when we see absentee owners, what that means is you have a property address of 212 22nd Avenue. What happened? All right, right at the top, 212 22nd Avenue. But where does the, let's see, if you go all the way to the right, there we go. Okay, so we want to go through here. So these are vacant, I'm sorry. So we want to find the ones that are no. So that means the tax bill does not go to the property address. So the tax bill goes to Bellwood, and you can see some here. Villa Park, Oak Park, Chicago, Itasca, Willowbrook. That's where the owners of the houses live. So you might want to send a little letter or a postcard of some sort, and you can do that right out of the Deal Vault, or you can do it your own way. If you're new on a short sample, it might be best for you to handwrite some letters. So this is a great format that Hugo just pulled up. And when you're sending thousands, I think we sent, I don't know, maybe 7,500 last month. So when we're sending volume, we can't handwrite that many. But on a small sample, you might want to handwrite. And that way yours might stand out a little different than the mass producers like our business, and you'll get some phone calls. And it's just a real simple, hi, my name is Dan, looking to buy houses in Bellwood. See you have a property on whatever street. If that's a property you think about selling, sure like to talk about it. And put your name and phone number. Let's see who calls. So that's vacant houses. So there's all sorts of different levels of distress. And each of those sellers are going to have a little different mojo to them. I mean, people whose back is against the wall because they're behind on taxes or they're behind on their mortgage and have had bill collectors chasing them because, let's face it, if they're not paying their mortgage, you think it's possible they're not paying their car payment or other bills they have too? The possibility is yes. So sometimes they are inundated with phone calls from collection agencies and things like that. So their guard is up, their patience is low, and you kind of have to, have a bedside manner, maybe like a doctor, when you talk to those kind of people. So The whole idea is just let everybody know what you do, because you never know who knows somebody. And you're a house buyer, and you're not a house buyer at retail prices. You're a house buyer at a discount. Think of it, when we're wholesaling properties, we're basically running a real estate pawn shop, right? So I think that's a good analogy, because I think everybody knows how a pawn shop works. You can bring stuff over there and you can leave with cash. They're going to buy it right then, right there. They're going to take it as is, and they're going to give you money for it. And we all know they're not going to give you anywhere near where it's worth. But you wonder, well, why would people do that? Why would people knowingly sell things for less than it's worth? Well, the pawn shop is an example of that, but let's take it to some, I, for one, I've never sold anything at a pawn shop, and maybe you haven't either. So let's talk about something maybe we've all done. Has anybody ever went to a car dealership and bought either a brand new car or well, in my day, we used to call them used cars, but today they're pre-driven. So if you've bought a pre-driven automobile from a car dealership and you just so happen to leave the one you were driving with them, congratulations. You just sold your car for less than it's worth, because you sold it at more of a wholesale price. Because the people you sold it to, they're not going to drive it. They're going to run it through the detail shop, and they're going to put it back out on the lot, and they're going to try to sell it for $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 more than they paid you for it. And you probably do that for the same reason everybody does. It's called speed and convenience. You don't want to be putting it on Facebook Marketplace. You don't want Craigslist. You don't want people coming to your house, and you surely don't want people coming back to your house if after you've sold it to them something malfunctions or doesn't work the way maybe it's supposed to. So when you dish it off to the car dealer, you wash your hands and you move on. And frankly, that's how some people want to sell their house. They don't want to list it. They don't want to clean it up. They don't want to spend money making the repairs that the realtor recommended that they do. They just want to sell it, and they want to sell it as is, and they'd like to get the cash as soon as possible. And those are the people that we buy from. And that is a very small sliver of the overall marketplace. We're talking probably in the neighborhood of probably less than 5% of all the real estate transactions are cash, right? And when we say cash, that can come a couple different ways. It can come as hard money loans. It can come as private money from people that liquidate their 401ks and IRAs and things like that in order to loan money on real estate deals. Or perhaps you have a war chest full of money, and if you do, make sure to contact me after this call so we can talk, so we can put your money to use in our business, right? But the whole idea is that that's a small group of people that buy like that, and that's where we fit in. So our job is to solve problems more than anything else with sellers. Went on an appointment. Let me just give you a glimpse of a couple of my appointments from this week. Had a house locally where the wife is trying to wrap up some affairs because her husband is at the very near end of a cancer battle. When I say near the end, somebody from hospice was over at the house yesterday to talk about what stages might come next. And she's got a vacant property, and they bought it 5 years ago. It's partially torn apart. They've done nothing with it since they bought it, and she doesn't want to deal with it. She just wants to get rid of it, and she'll get rid of it for the price she bought it for, which was a very aggressive price then. And the only thing that's happened in the market in the last 5 years is values have gone up, right? So if I can buy it at the same price they bought it 5 years ago, and that was a good deal, it's going to be a real good deal in today's market. Second, let me see, another one I went on. Again, somebody had passed. Somebody was in from Arizona to clean up the affairs and go through some stuff. This person is the heir to the home and is here for a few days. And when the question is, well, how soon would you like to get the house sold? He said, today. That's music to my ears, today. So we went over and we talked to that seller about, taking care of that problem. Trying to think what other ones I dealt with this week. I got another one, working with a guy that he's out of state. He had a property. It was a rental property. It's been vacant for 3 weeks. He's got a mortgage payment coming up. He had it listed. He had it listed, and nothing happened. And the realtor wants him to spend $20,000 or $25,000 to fix some things up in the pursuit of selling it. And this guy's out of state. He doesn't want to do that. He doesn't really deal with it. So there's a couple things to iron out, but we're talking about buying that at $100,000 less than it was listed for. So if that's going to come around, that too is going to be a good opportunity. So these opportunities are all around us. It's just a matter of how we find them. Another way, if you've ever seen those roadside "we buy houses" type of signs, it's old school. There's nothing flashy about it. We live in a high-tech Google AdWords and pay-per-click and all these other methods, but the old put a couple signs out still gets the phone to ring, and you'll take calls from contractors and other investors, etc. But there will be calls from people that have a house to sell, and that's a great place to start a conversation and work towards getting that contract. So the next step is doing a contract. Hugo, am I on screen share? Can I share my screen?
Yes, of course, Dan. So let me make you the presenter so that you can share the screen. Okay. You should be able to share your screen now. Perfect.
All right. So let's go over to Mr. Tile. All right. So here is the A to B contract that we use in our business. And if anybody doesn't have a copy of this, I'm glad to share it. But right now we're going to take a couple of minutes. We're going to talk about how we fill this out when I'm with a seller. Okay. Now, first of all, let me just show you the whole thing. And you can see that there's very little to it. It's 2 pages. And frankly, it's written in a way that a 3rd grader could read it and a 5th grader could tell you what it says. And that simplicity is critical when we're working in the off-market space, because we want people to be able to make a decision, and we don't want a bunch of complication in the contract to be a reason for them not to want to sign it. When you're with a seller and you're talking about their home and you're working up a price, they have that same feeling that you have, perhaps when you buy a house or a car or anything, pretty substantial. There's a lot of buildup to it, and there's a little bit of anxiety. And before you sign on the dotted line, you kind of question yourself, like, man, that's an awful expensive car. I mean, should I really be doing this? And you kind of need that little nudge to get over the goal line. And I kind of equate it to blowing up a balloon. And all the time you're with somebody and you're talking about putting a deal together, you're blowing air into that balloon. And it gets to the point where one more blow and it's going to pop. And there's a lot of anxiety right there. And if you walk away without them signing that contract or something of that nature, it's like all the air goes away. And then you've got to start all the way back with an empty balloon to get them ready to think about signing again. So that's why we want a contract that's super simple, and there's no real good reason, as long as they're in alignment with what you want to do, that they wouldn't want to sign it. So let's talk about how to fill this out. There's a couple of psychological hacks in here that you should know about, and we're going to talk about them. But first, right at the top, is the buyer. And oftentimes after I've been talking to somebody for a while, I say, hey, why don't we go sit down in the kitchen? And we get to the kitchen table because that's where people make life decisions, it seems. And I just start filling it out because I go with the assumption that you invited me over because you're looking to sell your house. And the only reason I'm here is because I'm looking to buy a house. So now the only thing we got to do is find a price that we're both kind of miserably happy about, right? And so I just start filling it out. For our company, it's Reinvest Homes, LLC, and or assigns. 99% of sellers, when they look at that or see that, are going to say nothing about it. I am going to talk about it, and we'll circle back to why. Purchase from, you're going to want to make sure that you have everybody that's on the deed is the seller, because they're going to have to sign. So if it's a husband and wife, they're both going to have to sign the contract. So it's important to know that. We're going to put the address, city or town, county, state, and zip code. Oftentimes, even if I know the zip code, just in case they're a little oblivious to the fact that I'm writing a contract at their table, I mean, usually they know, but one of the ways I bring them part of that process is they go, hey, hey Hugo, what's the zip code here again? And they go, oh, it's 60105. I go, oh, okay. And I write it down. So that at that point, it starts engaging them. This next part, I leave blank. So the purchase price and all that, for right now, I leave that blank myself. Then I come down here to the terms. I say to them, all right, well, I'm going to buy this house and I'm not going to get a mortgage. It's going to be a cash deal. So I'm going to go ahead and cross this out. And then I say, we're not sending the $500 home inspector over here to find every problem and outlet that doesn't work and then use that as a hammer to come back and try to beat you up for a better price. That's not how we work. The price we agree on, that is going to be the price. So I'm going to go ahead and cross that out. Thirdly, this house isn't listed, so there's not going to be any realtor commission or anything like that to be paid. So I cross that out. Number 4 is a good and marketable title. Of course, that's what you want to have at closing. All right, here's another thing. The closing shall occur on or before. Usually I'll say, yeah, we try to get these things done in 30 days. A lot of times we're able to do it sooner. So they heard me say 30. On this line, I write 30 business days from acceptance. And the reason I put business days, particularly when you're new, is because 30 business days is really the same as 45 days, isn't it? But if you wrote the closing is going to be 45 days, that doesn't sound very soon. The whole idea here is we're doing a cash deal. There shouldn't be a lot of, there shouldn't really be anything standing in the way other than getting this closed. So 30 days is a time frame that people seem to be comfortable with. And if you start saying 45 or 60, it sounds like this is way in the future and maybe this isn't really a deal and you're not going to buy, and it creates doubt in their mind. So that's what I do there. Let's talk about these first 3 again real quick. People have said to me, well, Dan, I mean, if you cross out the first 3 every time, why do you even have them in there? Why wouldn't you just take them out? And the answer is really twofold. One, because if we take that out, there's only 8, there's only 8 or 9 things here. There'd be nothing to this contract, number one. But more importantly, the reason is because if we just take a standard contract, and anybody that's ever bought a house on the MLS and a 14-page MLS, 7.0 contract, it's all pretty boilerplate, and you fill in a few slots and you sign at the bottom. And one of the things we want to do with this agreement is we want to customize it and we want to make it feel personal. And we'd like the seller to get the idea that because we're making some modifications to 1, 2, and 3, that we might be doing some things for them that we're not actually doing for other people, right? So now it becomes more personal. And now rather than just a real estate contract or an agreement, Now it's their agreement. Does that make sense? This is a critical piece here at number 6. We're going to talk about this in length because the Chicago market works differently than Phoenix and all these places. If you're following any of these, rah-rah mentors from out of town, they tell you all to find an investor-friendly title company that you can work with to get your deals closed. And that's not exactly how it works here in our market. In our market, everything is attorney driven. So buyers have attorneys and sellers have attorneys. And one of the things that's critical when we're doing an off-market deal is that we have to control the deal. And the way you control the deal is by paying all the closing costs. Because whoever pays all the closing costs is the one that dictates how and where things are going to close. So let's talk about how a wholesale deal or an off-market deal that we engage in is different than a typical retail deal where some family is buying and selling the home they're going to live in. The way it works locally is that the way attorneys play nice in the sandbox as it relates to real estate closings is that the attorney that represents the seller is the one that, quote, handles title, orders title, and decides whether we're going to close at Fidelity or Chicago Title or Stewart or Citywide or Old Republic or, okay? They decide that. And if you're going to try to assign a contract or double close in particular at a title company that you don't have any inside people that understand who you are and what you do and how things need to be done, that's going to be a potential problem for you. So the way we circumvent that is that we say we're going to pay all the closing costs. We spin that to the buyer is that one of the things when people sell a house traditionally is that, just for fun, anybody selling a house ever, pick a number anywhere near the listing price and go, hey, let's say you sold it for $190 at closing, how much are you actually going to get? And people are going to look at you and their eyes are going to spin like a slot machine because the answer is they don't know. And the reason they don't know is because there's a lot of variables. You have commission, 5, 6, 7%. So that's easy math. People can figure that out. But then when it comes to this whole thing about closing costs, there's a lot of, the realtor probably gave them a guide or some general numbers, but it's not down to the penny. And one of the things that we want to do with off-market people is we want to make sure that it's as clear as possible. And the way we do that is we pay all the closing costs. So that way, and there's no commission to factor in. So we're going to agree on a price and they're going to get that price minus $400 because they're going to need an attorney to handle the paperwork on their behalf. And they're going to have tax prorations because in Illinois, the real estate taxes are paid a year in the arrears. So when we're paying our taxes on our homes this year, we're actually paying for last year's taxes. So because of the ownership change, they prorate that. So when you're buying a house, you're going to actually buy it for a little less because of that. So the title is going to be ordered through Old Republic. Investor Title, which is the company that my business partner Joe Mueller and I co-founded almost 3 years ago now, we're going to serve as the exam agent and handle everything on your behalf. And let's talk about why this is also important. Because when you work with us, we're gonna coach you to get a contract filled out, and you're gonna want to give the name of our attorney to your seller because sellers are gonna need an attorney. And unless you own a business, a lot of people in life, they don't really have an attorney on retainer. Some have never used an attorney, and some people may have had an attorney draw up a will. They may have had them represent them in a criminal case, a divorce case, a drunk driving case, and there might be a couple other things in the big buckets. But just because they had an attorney for any one of those 4 things, that doesn't mean that that attorney does real estate. So a lot of times people really aren't quite sure where to turn. And we have to go in with a servant's towel over our arm, much in the way that a realtor works with sellers, because one of the values of working with a realtor is that there's a hand-holding procedure that goes on. So realtors have resources, and they'll say, here's a home inspection company that I recommend. Here's an attorney that can handle this for you. I refer all my clients to this attorney, and that kind of thing. So a lot of people, they welcome this recommendation because frankly, they don't know who to call. So we tell them, this is the attorney you want to call. And the reason you want to call this attorney is because instead of being charged $5, $6, $750, I've seen as high as $1,000 in the city of Chicago, because of the volume that we send to this particular attorney, she's only going to charge you $400. How does that sound? And people say, that sounds great. So that's part of it. And the other thing is, you know, as a seller, all you really want is the money. All the risk, all the liability is on the buyer when they buy a property. As the seller, all you want is the money, and you want to get it with as least cost to you to do it. So $400, that's pretty down and dirty price, and that's what she'll charge the seller. Here's the critical piece, and this is why this is so important. Because when this contract gets sent to this attorney, because this attorney is part of what we do, part of, handles all our personal business, and we work with loads of wholesalers in and around the Chicago area, is that Ashley gets the contract and offers reassurance and says, yep, I've got the contract right here. Everything looks great. We're going to go ahead and get title ordered, and we're going to work, towards getting your money here in the very near future, which is what a seller wants to hear, isn't it? Now let's talk about how that can go horribly wrong. If this contract gets taken to a seller's attorney, regular real estate attorneys that are accustomed to doing MLS deals with a 14-page contract, they see this two-piece, Swiss cheese contract with holes all over it, with no language about all sorts of things, and typically they don't like it. They don't like, we didn't get back to it, but I kind of jumped around, but when we get back up here to the purchase price, for a deposit, we write $100. And there's no attorney that likes to see $100. They want to see 1,000 minimum, 1,500, 2,000, depending on the price of the house. And we'll circle back on how we talk about that with the seller. But the point is, that's right out of the gate. The attorney's not going to like that. They're not going to like some of these out clauses that we've included down below here. Why don't we just go ahead and finish the contract, because I realize I'm confusing even myself. So we're going to handle, as the buyer, you're going to pay all the closing costs. In the event that you don't perform, the seller is going to retain the earnest money as the sole remedy under this agreement. So that means they can't come back at you for anything else. So if you write $100 and you flake on the deal, frankly, you owe your seller $100. No more. This is number 8 here. This is an important piece of the puzzle. This is what allows you to cancel the contract if you need to. So this is subject to the buyer's inspection and approval of the property prior to the transfer of title. Sometimes sellers might say, well, wait a minute, I thought you weren't going to do an inspection. And I say, no, it's not that kind of inspection. We're not sending over the $500 guy. I'm just saying that, we need to drive by the day before closing to make sure that the building didn't burn to the ground. So we have to know that, everything's still in the condition that it is today when you showed it to me. Secondly, it's subject to financial partners' approval. If it comes up, I say, listen, I know this might come as a shock to you, but I don't have unlimited money, and I have investors that come alongside me, and they fund and provide the money for the deals that I do. And I'm gonna, a lot of times they want to know more about the project before they dish the money over. This next one is very important. The sellers to provide buyers' representatives with access for inspection, repair estimates, and to market the property upon acceptance. So right out in front, we're going to tell them that we're going to market the property. And we'll talk about, so I'm just going to leave those things there, and then we're going to circle back on that. This offer does not represent the current value. So we're telling them flat out, your house is worth more. We tell them flat out, our intention is to make a profit. And in our case, we're licensed realtors. And if you're going to do more than 2 of these types of transactions a year, you'll need to get licensed too. But my best advice for anybody new that has yet to do a deal, please don't spend the time and money to go get your license because you think you might want to try wholesaling. You get 2 in 12 months. So let's go through everything it's going to take to get one into the end zone a couple times and see that you like doing this, that you're getting the hang of it, and you want to do more of it. That would be the time to go get a license. And we agree that this is a legally binding contract when signed. So the whole idea is we want this signed while we're right there with people. Let's talk about some of the, can I take Ashley's number down? Did everybody capture that to do a screenshot, write it down, etc.? I hope, okay. So now we're gonna go back up to the top. Remember, I said I was gonna talk about the assigns aspect. I'm told, and I've never tested it, that every contract is assignable unless there's language that says it isn't, but I don't see any real good reason to test that. So we just make sure it's clear that it might be assigned. The front end, if they ask about it, because they might be talking about something before we really want to talk about it. So if they question me about what assigns means, I'll say, yeah, listen, the reason I have that there is because actually I own more than one company. One of the companies I own is the company that buys houses. We make an additional investment into them with the thought that we're going to go ahead and, invest more money after we buy it with the thoughts of reselling it in the future. We have another company that we buy houses. We make an additional investment, maybe not quite so much, and we add them to a rental portfolio. And because I'm just seeing your house today for the first time, and I really like it, and I know I want to be involved in it, but frankly, I'm not quite sure which bucket it's going to fall into. So I just want to leave that open so that we don't have to go back and redo contracts and all that down the line. We'll just close it in the one that makes sense for us, at the time. Okay. So, so that's how we address that. Then we get over here to the price. We talk that over. Write $100. Again, rather than have them come at me, I just hit it head on. I go, yeah, $100. I go, you're probably wondering only $100. I go, you have to realize that we buy a lot of houses, and we're not buying a house to live in. This is gonna be a business deal, and I'm sure you can see how it doesn't make sense for our business to have thousands of dollars laying around in title company escrow accounts. And usually they go, okay. Every once in a while, I've had somebody say, well, $100, I mean, you're not very serious about buying my house, obviously. And I go, well, I mean, sir, if I wasn't interested and capable of buying your house, would I have sent you a postcard? Would I have talked to you on the phone for an hour? Would I have been over here for the last 2 hours if I wasn't in a position to buy the house? I mean, frankly, I've got hobbies and things I like to do, but it wouldn't be this unless I was serious. And that usually kind of is good enough, I guess I'll say, for them. Let's go back down here to this part. So the seller to provide access. We need access because we need to get buyers into the property. Like I said, we had, I don't know, 20, 25, there might have been 30 people in Bellwood yesterday morning. How do you explain that? And we tell our sellers that, the way I kind of explained it anyways, is that I tell them, we're running a business here, so we like to treat this like the the on-ramp to the highway, where traffic's buzzing along at 75 or 80, and you come down and you build speed so that when you get to the bottom of the ramp, it's a merge because you're going about the speed that traffic's already going. We don't drive all the way down to the bottom of the ramp and stop and then try to go 0 to 80 and not get rear-ended, right? I say, so we try to do the same thing when we buy houses. You know, between now and the time we close, we're going to need to get some of our contractors in here. We're going to need to know how much tile we need to order, how many gallons of paint we're going to need, how many linear feet of, base and casing and, all this kind of stuff. And I say, because we like to kind of get that pre-planned on what we're going to do, so that theoretically, if we close on Tuesday, on Wednesday, the work starts. Okay. So that's why we need to get in. And, and sometimes that is true. And then other times that's, that's clearly so that we can get our buyers in there. 105%, nobody ever asks about that. But if they do, it's because taxes are paid a year in the arrears. And last time I checked, taxes never seem to go down. And sadly, they rarely even stay the same. So the likelihood is that when I'm paying the taxes for this year, next year, they're going to be higher than they are right now. So we're going to claw some of that back right now. And if anybody makes a deal about it, every once in a while, we cross it out. We just write 100%. Okay. So that's why, so that's how the contract works. And that's why we do it this way. And this is why it's important that we drive this business to an attorney that, number one, understands what we're doing, and number two, along with us, is in a position to facilitate it. The other thing that you get when you work with Ashley, when you work through Investor Title, is the fact that your interest in this deal is going to be protected as a byproduct. And what do I mean by that? Thankfully, I've only heard about it 3 times, but if I've heard about it 3 times, I know it's happened more than 3 times. And what's happened is that there's a wholesale deal with a assignment of $8,000 or $10,000, and the seller may or may not be at closing. The buyer may or may not, but the buyer's attorney is. And attorneys are all trying to, work in their client's best interest primarily. And so 3 times I've heard this story where there's 2 attorneys sitting at a closing table, and they look at some $10,000 assignment, and one of them says, "Hey, what's the deal with this assignment? How about my seller gets $5,000 more, and your buyer buys it for $5,000 less?" And they go ahead and do that. They throw the assignment agreement in the garbage can, essentially. And as a wholesaler, you just got cut right out of that deal. And I already know what you're going to do about it if that happens. And you know what I think you're going to do about it? Absolutely nothing. Because in order for you to get an attorney and to prove your point and fight and claw to get the $10,000 that you think you deserve, it's going to probably cost you $10,000 in attorney fees and court costs to get it. So it's just a lost opportunity. So the nice thing about having Ashley representing your seller is that if any attorney suggests anything along those lines, Ashley says no. Yeah, no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to go ahead and close things here just the way it's been laid out. So that's how that works. Now, let's talk about why we started this title company in the first place, which is the title company that's for investors by investors, is because we buy properties too, and what it costs to get deals closed in this market is very high. And a lot of people don't understand how this works. So I'm going to go ahead and explain the process now, just so everybody knows. As a licensed realtor, when I meet with a seller, I have to disclose that right up front. I actually have to disclose it on the telephone when I first start talking to them. When it comes to how closings work, if you called 3 attorneys and said, "Hey, I'm selling my house. How much are you going to charge me? What's it going to cost me to do the closing?" They're going to tell you probably anywhere between $500 and $1,000, which is true. Here's what they're not going to tell you. They're not going to tell you that they are an agent of the title company. At least they're not going to tell you that up front. So the way we work in our market is the attorneys have an agency relationship with all of the title companies, and they get what you and I would call a kickback, but officially it's called an agency fee, and that comes off the title insurance policy. So this is a closing statement for some of you that maybe have never seen one, and it goes through all the costs here, and it talks about who pays for what. So when we get, so the prorations, those are the taxes that got prorated. So here we go. Title, CPL fee to buyer, $25. Who gets that $25? Fidelity National Title Insurance Company gets it. What about the CPL to the seller? Yep, they get it. The escrow fees, $9.75. Who gets that? Oh, Fidelity National Title. So you see Fidelity National Title all the way to everything you can see right now. And then we get to the next one, which is title, the owner's title insurance policy. Who gets that money? Or not all of it, but a very healthy portion of it. Majors and Price LLC. That's an attorney. So the attorney gets this money. Now, they don't tell you that up front when you ask what it's going to cost to close. But the reality is, when you're a seller and you sit down at the closing table and there's an inch of paperwork to be signed, and we've all been there. The attorney says, sign here, this is the bill of sale, sign here, this is the deed, sign here, this is the master statement, sign here, this is an affidavit of blah, 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 sign here, this is a this, sign here, this is a that, sign here, this just says I'm an agent of the title company, sign here, this is this, and it just gets buried in the middle of all that stuff. So they've disclosed it, you've signed off on it, and you didn't think to ask, well, whoa, what exactly does that mean? And they don't bother to tell you. And this is where it shows up, $17.50. So now how is that different when you work with us? Joe and I have done something that is pretty remarkable, if I do say so myself, and that's that we've positioned ourselves as a title agent, the same as an attorney, except we're not attorneys. And in order to do that, there's all sorts of hoops to jump through, as you can imagine. Some of the easy ones, or not easy, but the more visible ones are, we had to be licensed by the state, we have to have signage, we have to have a brick and mortar building, so you can't do this out of your basement, and some of those things. But we've done it, and in almost 3 years, we're knocking on the door of probably just a little north of 250 closings. I asked a rep the other day, and we have 39 on the books awaiting to close. And in the last month or 6 weeks, I think we've closed 16 deals. So there's a lot of deals going through here. And why is it that people are choosing to work with us? Well, because we understand what you're doing, and we do the same thing as you do, and we don't believe in overpaying if we don't have to. I mean, I think we can all agree that a 60-ounce ribeye is going to be a much better cut of meat and a better dinner than an $18 hamburger. So you pay more, you get more. When it comes to closing, people are paying more, they're not getting more. They're just spending more. So when you look at another house, what was the date on this? This is recent. The date's not in there. Somebody just sent this to me because we were talking about this. Here's a recent one, July 24th. So this is a deal that was an investor title service deal, and the same way. There's a couple different fees. Fidelity gets this one, investor title gets this one, but the big one is this owner's title insurance policy again, $900, not $17.50. So essentially what we do is we discount the title insurance policy for investors. So that's the value. So you're getting that discount plus all up in here. We get rid of some of the other, what I call little junk fees. Okay, and so on average, people are going to save probably. How do I get my screen back here? Hold on here. Try to figure out how not to share my screen. That's right. Share my screen. So anyways, so that's the whole thing, right? So that doesn't sound like a big deal, but particularly for people that are flipping houses, because on the backside, what's happening is you're doing the traditional cost. The seller pays their side, the buyer pays that side, and if you can save $1,000 every time you sell a house, you know, if you're a house flipper and you do 3, 4, or 5 a year, and you do that for 3, 4, or 5 years in a row, you know, we're talking about 25 closings perhaps. And while $1,000 here and there in the big scheme of things might seem like a small number, at the point where we're talking about $25,000, I don't know about you, but $25,000, that's a lot of money in my world. So I certainly wouldn't want to spend it if I didn't have to. And I certainly wouldn't want to spend it if I wasn't going to get anything more because I did. Does anybody have any questions about that? That might have been a little confusing. Okay, so this is why the whole closing process and what happens here locally is different than other places. The other thing I'll tell you is that as the wholesaler, you might be saying, well, what does this have to do with me? Because I'm not actually buying anything. I'm just passing it along. Well, first of all, you're providing a value to your end buyer, and they're going to be pleasantly surprised. And secondly, if, you know, it's amazing how, you know, buyers will stand in the driveway kicking dirt for 20 minutes if they think they can save $500 and talk you down. But then people get to closing and they just blindly sign and pay what everybody says they should pay. And theoretically, you know, that $1,000 that they're not going to pay, frankly, they could pay you $500 more than they plan to for the house, and they'd still be saving $500. So you win, they win. And, you know, if you do 5 deals and you get an extra 500 every time, you know, there's more money in your pocket at the end of the year as well. So there's only so much money in these deals. We just have to decide who's going to get the money and how it's going to be passed around. In an effort to try to steer sellers to our attorney, sometimes, you know, if they insist that they have an attorney, I tell them that's great. And then I go ahead and I tell them all the reasons why their attorney is not going to like our contract. And I explain everything to them that I just explained to you. And the reason why that's so important is because when I explain it to them and I tell them why their attorney's not going to like it, and I point out how their attorney makes money, and they're not going to tell you that. And what I tell people to kind of think of is I'd like you all to think about if you have a childhood friend that calls you tomorrow, Monday, and says, hey, it's short notice. I happen to be in Chicago this week for business. It looks like I can break free on Wednesday night. I know you're busy, but if you can find a way to break out on Wednesday night and meet me for dinner, that would be so awesome. I'd love to catch up. And oh, by the way, I'm buying dinner. I don't know about you, but at the point where my buddy says, I'm buying dinner, I don't really care where we go. All I want to know is where and what time. And I'm guessing that's the same for you, right? And this works the same way. So, you know, I just coach the seller to kind of ask their attorney, like, well, I mean, help me understand. I mean, if Dan's going to pay all the closing costs, why do I care where we close? And there is no answer for that, because the only answer is, well, then I don't make money. So they're not going to tell them that. Now, don't get me wrong. Some attorneys are happy just to facilitate the deal just the way it's laid out. And that happens, you know, that happens as well. But every so often, you're going to run into somebody that's going to throw a monkey wrench into your plans. And when you explain how it all works up front, it's very satisfying when the seller calls you later and goes, Dan, I couldn't believe it. All that stuff you told me that my attorney was going to talk to me about, that's exactly how it went down. And when you tell them how it's going to be, and then that happens, then who's in the position of trust, and who do they believe? You. If you don't talk about it and you avoid it, and then their attorney goes, I don't like this. There's no clause about this. This needs to be $1,000 earnest money. We got to get rid of all these out clauses. This is nonsense. And you don't understand. You're the seller. You're providing the title insurance. It's very important that I clear the title and I handle all that on your behalf. If the attorney tells them that and you didn't, then who do you think they believe? They believe the attorney, and they should. Why wouldn't they? So that's why all the things that you might want to worry about, let's not worry about them. Let's get out in front of them. The last thing I'm going to talk about when it comes to getting out in front of it is that it's important that your sellers know that you're going to make money. And it says it right on the contract. The intention is to make money. But I bring it right to their attention. I say, listen, you have to I want to make sure you understand the fact that I'm not going to live in this house. So I have to treat this as an investment. And I think we all know the goal of any kind of investment is to somehow, God willing, make a profit. Now, it doesn't always end that way, sadly, but that's the goal when we go into it. So I'm going to tell you how we're going to make money with this house, and it's typically going to be one of three ways. Either we're going to buy it, we're going to make an additional investment into it, we're going to return it to its former glory, and we're going to hope to sell it for a profit in the future, which I think sounds nice to a seller, that you're going to take their home and restore it to its former glory. Jargon that we use at real estate meetings and with each other and on TV where we talk about flipping. I'm not so sure that people like the idea that the home that they've lived in for 25 years is going to, quote, get flipped. I think we're going to make an investment into it and return it to its former glory. Sounds a lot better. You might find some language you like. Secondly, I say we might buy the property. We might make an additional investment, maybe not quite so much, and we're going to hold it in a rental portfolio. And this just reinforces the assigns that we talked about earlier. And then I tell them the third way is, this might come as a shock to you again, but we don't have unlimited money and resources for money. And sometimes, you called me and we just talked a couple of days ago or yesterday, in some cases today, and here I am, and I love the house and I want to work with you and we're putting a deal together. I'm very excited, but I could get a phone call in 2 days from now and there might be something else that comes my way that, as hard as it might be to believe, but I might like it better. And I've already committed to you that we're going to close and you're going to get your money. And we've agreed on $143,000. So, the reality is that school teachers know other school teachers, accountants know other accountants, etc. So you might imagine that as a real estate investor, I just so happen to know some other real estate investors. So I guess this would be a good time to ask you as any. As long as you get the $143,000 that we've agreed on today, do you care if it's my $143,000? And I've never had anybody say no. They go, I don't care. I just want $143,000. And I say, okay, well, it's important that I ask you that because it's possible that I may, this deal might get passed on to somebody else that I know. And, and of course, I'm probably going to make a couple bucks for the effort because I told you, my intention is to make a profit somehow. And that might be one of the ways, just so you know. And, over time, I've had people say, man, I don't know if I want to have that conversation with the seller. What if that causes a big problem? And I would tell you that if that's going to be a problem, I'd certainly like to talk about it right here, right now, while we're in the heat of the moment and we're excited that we're getting our house sold, rather than avoid it and then get to a closing. And if the seller is using Ashley just says, here it is, signed, blah, blah, blah. Some other well-intentioned attorney takes that master statement, wants to go through it. He goes, okay, this is a fee for this. This is the tax prorations. This is the title insurance policy. This is this. Oh, down here, assignment agreement, $12,000. Yeah, remember that nice guy you sold your house to? Yeah, he turned around and sold it to that guy. He made $12,000. Depending on what that number is, and if it's too big, especially based on the price of the house, that whole deal could blow up right at the closing table. Because whatever that assigned price is, what you're essentially telling the seller flat out is that your house wasn't worth 110, it was worth 140 to somebody, because somebody else was willing to pay 140 for it. And the seller goes, that's my 30 grand sitting on the table. And, you know, and they find a way to blow the deal up and not close. And then you're out and you've worked too hard and it's taken too long to get to this point to have it not come through. So that's why if the profit's going to be big, we double close. So the contract assignments are great for 5, 7, 8, maybe as high as 10,000, depending on the price of the house. And again, particularly because you told your seller that you plan to make a profit. So that way, when they get to closing and they see $8,000 assignment fee, they might say, $8,000? Oh man. I mean, I know Dan said he was going to make money. I didn't think he was going to make $8,000, but I am getting my 132,000 or whatever we agreed on. And, so I can't really complain. And they go ahead and they make sure it gets closed. If it's going to be a big profit, that's where we double close. So essentially, we're going to do 2 complete transactions. And this is why I called that first contract the A to B. That's the contract between you as a wholesaler and your seller. And then there's going to be a second contract that's going to be between you and your end buyer. And they're going to run title on all of it. They're going to do everything twice. But essentially, one deal is going to close at 10 a.m. and the second one is happening almost simultaneously, kind of at the same time, or maybe an hour later, but it's boom, boom, back to back. And we do those deals in a way that you will not need money to get it done. We work to use the end buyer's money to close the A to B transaction. So, I had somebody that called, actually they called Fidelity, and they asked about doing double closes, and whoever they talked to said they don't do them. So, we know people at Fidelity, and we do them. So what's the difference? The difference, and some of you know this in life, is that life's an equation of what you know and who you know. And if you know the right people, then things end up differently, don't they? And I jokingly tell people, if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you might want to re-watch Goodfellas, because at the point where Henry Hill takes his girl and cuts through the line, through the kitchen, and comes up the other side, and someone's putting a table down right in front of everybody, in front of the band, I think we all know that has nothing to do with what you know, and it has everything to do with who you know, right? So, we have the people that we work with inside these title companies, and we have a process, and everybody knows who does what, and it works smoothly for everybody. I've been doing a lot of talking. We've been in for an hour, and I think we're about out of time. I tried to cover what we could in terms of getting that first deal done. Is there any questions in the chat box that I can answer for anybody? Because we talked about a lot and I know it went fast. Is anybody still on the call? Let's start there. Go ahead, I can hear. No questions from Debbie. Thank you, Larry. Glad to hear that, Loretta. We're at the 11th hour. Can I show Ashley's information again? Yes. So if you'd like to get a copy of that contract that I just showed everybody, you can email me at, let me put it here, Dan at, oops, what happened here? It's also in DealVault for the people that have DealVault. We've recently upgraded it, so I got to make sure Hugo can upload the new one.
Right. Right here on their make offer, as you mentioned that. So we'll have, make sure that we have the latest from Dan. But yeah, you can get it from DealVault. And for those of you who don't have access to DealVault yet, you can get it for free by signing, filling this form out. The package in the drop-down should be special Chicago DealVault. And the promo code is going to be Dan.
All right.
That's how you can get free access to DealVault, unlimited training. And Dan, I want to thank you very much for your incredible presentation, amazing information. And friends, please feel free to reach out to Dan. He's an incredible resource.
Let me throw one more thing on the table before we go. So I gave everybody my personal phone number. So, you know, that's, you know, if I can answer any questions about some of this stuff, I'm happy to. We're kind of at the 11th hour, but I'm going to throw it out there. Joe and I do a little partnership program, and it's primarily geared for new investors, particularly that haven't done a deal yet. And it doesn't cost anything to be a part of it. But basically, you know, we kind of hold a weekly Zoom meeting and we talk about different aspects. And it's nice because we work through any deals that you might be working on, but you're able to listen in as we talk about, you know, somebody else's deal. So that deal in Bellwood was actually from one of the people in our partnership group. And that deal was found driving for dollars. Okay. And so we started in January. We've got a small group of people, and we're going to kind of do a mid-year, quote, second semester kind of group. And this isn't for everybody. And just because you say you want to be in it doesn't mean you're in. There's some hoops you're going to have to jump through. We want to know that you're serious. And if that's something that you're interested in, I'll need to know by 5 o'clock tonight, because like I said, we're at the 11th hour on this thing. So, you know, you can text me at my phone number up there. You can email me and let me know that you're interested, and I'll get you the information. And if not, that's fine too. And if you have any questions, or if there's something, you know, that you think I can answer for you or help you with regard to getting a contract signed and or getting it closed, that's what I'm here for.
So thank you very much, Dan, for joining today. It was incredible. Thank you, everyone, for taking time on your busy Sunday. I look forward to seeing you on our next webinar on Tuesday. And please RSVP for our bootcamp that is coming up at the end of the month. Okay, we already have 82 RSVPs. Please make sure that you RSVP. And if you still don't have access to Chicago DealVault, please fill out the form that I just sent. They get it for free for 30 days, limited training, one-on-one.
Yeah, for those of you that don't have DealVault, I don't know why not. Because if you're going to be serious about working the off-market space, this is the resource for buyers, for potential sellers. I mean, I can't tell you how valuable this resource is.
Great. Okay, so
Hold on.
again, thank you, Dan, for the great presentation. And
No problem. Real
I look
quick,
forward
people,
to you
I
all
want to make sure everyone
Tuesday.
has my contact. So my phone number is 847-910-0454. And the email is Dan@investors with an S, investors title services with an S, LLC.com. Dan@investors title services LLC.com. Thanks for having me, Hugo. Thanks to everyone that spent an hour with us today on Sunday.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Talk to you soon on Tuesday, and have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.